Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast. My name's Phil. Joining me as usual, I've got Rohan. Hey, Rohan.
Hey, Phil.
And today we are joined by Brian. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
As usual, this episode of the Home Assistant Podcast is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabu Casa. Easily access your local Home Assistant instance remotely for a small monthly fee that supports the Home Assistant and the ESPHome project. Configuration is done via the user interface, so no fiddling with router settings, SSL certificates, or any YAML. Okay, Brian, where in the world are you from?
I'm here in Arizona, United States, middle of the desert here.
Very nice. So I'm guessing you have summertime over there at the moment, so probably feeling the heat? Yeah,
it's pretty rough. We've had, I think, a record number of 110 degree days Fahrenheit. I should have looked up what that was in Celsius for you guys, but it's pretty dang hot. Let's put it there.
It's about 43. Yeah. That is very hot.
Yes.
Luckily, we're kind of in the fringes of that hurricane coming up into California, so it's been overcast the last few days.
Yeah.
And it's really helped out a lot. So hopefully we're at the end of the streak.
Oh, man.
That's rough.
That is brutal.
So who is Brian and how did you start in home automation?
Yeah, Brian, patent attorney by day. Bought this house in 2017. And at the time, I had never even considered home automation. It wasn't a thing that I really even knew existed. And I was 30 by then, so pretty late in my life. And the way I got into home automation, one of the first things I did when I bought this house, I brought over my reverse osmosis water filter from the apartment I was in.
Yeah.
And one of the second things that happened was that it burst from the wall and flooded my house while I was out of town.
Ooh.
Oh,
yes.
Lovely. That would be nice to come home to.
Yeah, nightmare scenario for sure. So then I was at Lowe's, kind of looking at some of the stuff they had, and I saw one of their water leak sensors, and kind of got me thinking. I was like, oh wow, water leak sensor. It's a good idea. I should get this if I flood again, it can notify me. So I bought this. It was one of their little Zigbee. I don't know what their brand used to be. They used to have their own line of home automation stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just for
they killed it, right?
They killed it a while ago. Yep.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those. I got it home and I pulled it out, and I was trying to figure out how to get it to work. And I didn't realize at the time that you needed a hub. I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I was going to have to Bluetooth it to my phone or something. So I was like, all right, what? And so I just ended up returning it at that time. But it kind of got my brain working. I got the wheels rolling. So eventually I was on, I keep an eye on Slick Deals, stuff like that online. So they had their smart things kit for sale one day. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I think it came with a water leak sensor and a bunch of other stuff.
Yep.
Nice.
So I got my start through Smart Things. Pretty quickly found it lacking. The UI for automations was pretty weak. All I really did with it was kind of group some lights together.
Right.
Which actually is some of my favorite automations, because whoever designed this house, it's got a lot of the front hallway. It's got 4 lights all the way across the front of the house. And each one has its own switch. So it's a nightmare. If I want all of them on, I've got to walk down the hall and hit both. Or kind of the same thing with the back porch. If I want the entire backyard lit, I've got to go into my bedroom, hit that light switch, and then go to the other.
Oh, wow. So not the one junction box that you can just go click, click, click. You got to walk around.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's the convenience of being able to have light switches that control whatever you want and not have to have everything hardwired together is just a dream come true. So
yeah,
that was kind of what I had with Smart Things. And back then I also had the MyQ, which wasn't super happy with it.
Nope.
Eventually I figured out WebCore, which actually you could do really good automations, but it was still on the cloud and everything was super slow. So that's when, I started seeing rumblings of Home Assistant. Took me a little bit to figure out that that's what I really needed, but eventually took the jump. Started out with the Pi, the 3. Got everything running with the little, USB Z-Wave and Zigbee stick.
Yep.
really the problem there was just every time anything changed, you guys remember you had to reboot the thing.
Yeah.
And that Pi, the reboot time was just atrocious. So it didn't take me long. I set up my old desktop computer as a server. I'm renting, so that's basically still what I'm using. It's been upgraded a few times, but I'm still on basically an old desktop that I use as a server. I'm one of the 3.5% running just core. I run it in a Python virtual environment.
Okay. Oh, so you're the guy that they have to like keep saying that we're upgrading Python versions for. That's you.
It's one of 4 people. Yeah.
I just checked. It's like 3.35% or something that I use core.
Yeah.
But I do like it. I love having it on my server because I use the server for a lot. And with Home Assistant on there, I use the system monitor component or integration to keep track of the CPU usage, RAM, etc. And then I also, it can monitor the available hard disk space on different folders.
Right.
So I actually use it to monitor my backups, make sure the backups are occurring okay. Specifically, I've got these external hard drives that I use they're all encrypted. So when I take them off site, they're encrypted just for whatever safety reasons.
Yep.
But what happens is I reboot my server and I don't like get back on to do the encryption and enter the password on it. And so I don't think about it. I reboot my server and then I don't have backups going for like a week or two because the drive's encrypted and it can't mount it. So I just use System Monitor to monitor that mount point, make sure that the external hard drive is mounted okay every day. And then I don't do this, but what I want to automate too is just make sure that the available space on it kind of, goes up and down as expected.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, like, how are you monitoring those backups? Are you looking for something specific, like certain file names that should exist per day? Or is it just, as you said, just size?
No, it's strictly the available space. So if the backup hard drive is not mounted, then the folder doesn't exist and basically the sensor shows up as unavailable. Is how I make sure that the hard drive gets mounted.
Right.
And are you using Home Assistant to then monitor that the backups are occurring as well? Or have you got...
I'm not doing that, but it is what I want to do because I do... It's not automated, but I manually basically check every day if I think of it. I just look at the hard drive space, make sure it goes down, the USB drive, make sure the space goes down. And then, but the automation's nice because I don't check it every day. And every once in a while, I'll get a notification, hey, you're back at your USB drive's not mounting. So I'm really happy with that stuff.
Yeah, that's a great one.
So that's why I like it on my server. There is some downsides. I mean, I've got everything on a UPS, but, that server takes up a lot of juice, especially with all the hard drives it's powering. So I do actually have the yellow. I want to
Nice.
You guys have been talking about it a lot lately, and you almost have me convinced I need to move it over to the yellow. And I think especially just so with the backup, it'll run for hours.
I mean, for what it's worth, I'm still waiting on mine. So it was supposed to be, actually, I was supposed to get it this month. That's a good point. I should check on that.
Yeah. I think I was like one of the first pre-orders. So
nice.
I got it. I think I've had it 6 months at least. And
oh, wow.
It's just sitting there for now. You guys are right though. I need to get it going.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's one of those things where it's like once you even with the core setup, because again, like I was one of those people, right, that had it set up on core, even on Raspberry Pi, et cetera. But then once I moved it to Docker, like my life has been so much easier. It's just been so much better. But even on in the case of Yellow, it's technically a supervised install, right? So you've got the supervisor and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think it's the OS, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be, I don't know, I think it'll be easier to deal with. I mean, but I do. I mean, one interesting thing is when we started off, you said you talked about like you're a patent lawyer, right? So, I mean, do you have a technical background along with that, or how did you? Yeah. At
least in the United States, I don't know if it's the same everywhere. You have to have some kind of technical degree to even be considered for the patent bar. So my computer engineering is my degree. I actually worked for 5 years as an engineer.
Nice. Okay.
Doing chip design before I went back to law school. So yeah, that's my background, which brings me then into like what I like to do around the home, which is make as much custom stuff as I can with my ESP8266s.
Yeah.
Pretty quick after getting Home Assistant up and running, I was like looking at all these videos, mostly Dr. Z's. I'm sure you guys are well aware.
Yep.
But everything he does with his Sonoffs, I was like pretty quickly in love. I mean,
that's great.
I've got almost every one of my light switches now has one of those Sonoff minis stuffed in there.
Interesting.
I think like Dr. C's must have been like the biggest salesperson for
Sonoff stuff.
He was just like, everything was like, bam, like, gotta do this. I'm like, God.
He's done more for Sonoff than Sonoff has done for themselves. It's,
I believe it.
So if you don't mind me asking, why do that over a smart switch or a smart bulb? Was it a cost thing? Was it a convenience thing? Was it like, what was that?
Most of it at the time was, I really liked the Wi-Fi aspect, and I wanted to do like MQTT.
Sure.
And then price too. Like I wanted to outfit my whole house, and so I could get, whatever these cost, $5 a piece or something. And the Z-Wave switches I'm using, I mean, I think they're $20 or $30.
Yeah.
Whatever they are. So yeah, primarily price and keeping it open with Tasmota.
Yeah.
Was really good. And I think just price and Tasmota.
And open to you, so like it's closed. Like you don't have to worry about a firmware update coming down and breaking it, sort of thing. You own it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, that's pretty sweet.
And then now I've kind of moved more over to just embedding the D1 minis into the light switches. And I like to do these little they're like little capacitive buttons you can get. I think they're for Arduinos. You can get like a 10-pack of them for a couple bucks. So I just like hot glue those into the back of a blank wall switch and just make little touch buttons everywhere. And the thing I like about that too is you can do other sensors. So like in my pantry, I drilled a little hole in the blank so that I could put in a motion sensor. And I also wired up a read switch. So with the pantry, if you open the door, the light comes on. If the door's already open, you can just walk in and the motion sensor gets you, or you can touch it on and off. So like the flexibility of that, which I mean, definitely you can't do with a Z-Wave switch.
Yeah. That's nice. And have you done that through and through, or?
No, I mean, really the pantry is really the only place I've got the motion and the read switch. A couple of I think the front door and the back door, or a couple of my doors, I have read switches that I've wired up like that, where I just kind of drill into the door frame and put in a read switch.
Yep.
But then a lot of them, I've still got the old Zigbee sensors that I had from Smart Things that are still kicking.
Right. Okay.
So since discovering like ESPHome and moving like everything over, or even Tasmota, how much like have you started going down on like Zigbee and Z-Wave? Like have you just sort of pivoted that way?
Yeah, I'm pretty committed to originally Tasmota and now ESPHome. If I didn't have this legacy stuff from Smart Things, I think I'd be strictly ESPHome. If I could, I'd have only ESP devices. The Zigbee stuff, and Z-Wave both, I just find every once in a while stuff, it'll get knocked off the network. I'm always changing batteries, and you never know when you put the new battery in, is it going to reconnect right away or?
Yeah.
So and I think the protocol too, it's a little bit of a black box with Wi-Fi. You always know, like, is something connected? What's its IP address? Can I ping it? And then with ESPHome, you can look at the logs, get all the information you could ever want. If you need to debug something, you can add some debug statements. There's just nothing like that with Z-Wave and Zigbee, or you just have to kind of pray it works.
Yeah, I can get that.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. So, go ahead.
So then with the ESP stuff, I've just gone through my house. Everything I can, I'm putting an ESP in. One of the first was the garage door. I got rid of that, the MyQ.
Yeah.
Get rid of that, right? No cloud dependency there. Like, just
So
seems
for now,
overkill for what it is, right? Like, it's just a reed switch to stay on and off, right? You don't have to connect that to the cloud.
Yeah, I mean, even when I had the MyQ, like it was so unreliable that I still had to put on one of my smart things, like multi-sensors, so I could like detect if it was like open or shut.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, they've gotten a little bit better. I feel like it's been pretty stable because I still have mine. But it's at one point they were screwing around with just people being like, hey, you know what? No, we're going to start blocking different types of user agents and so on and so forth. And it's just frustrating, right? It's just kind of crappy all around. So,
yeah, I mean, admittedly, it's been probably 4 years since I've used it. So I'm sure it has improved quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, no, but it just hasn't broken in quite a bit. And I apologize to anyone from Chamberlain listening to this. And it's been very frustrating for the entire home automation community as a whole, I think. So.
Yep. And then after the garage door, I think one of the second big things I did was the thermostat. I got one of these like 4 relay Sonoffs. Mm-hmm. So I could basically use that to switch all the, the control signals for the HVAC. I've got a heat pump, so it's got the heat pump compressor, the fan, and then a reversing valve to switch between heat and cooling. How
did you know like what wires to send power to the right time? Like, did you like have to Google around and see things, or just? I
think mostly it was just my own like logical thinking. I was just like, okay, I've got the heat pump. I know there's, I know what the signaling looks like because there's the, like I said, the reversing valve to switch modes. You've got the fan and you got the compressor on. So you want to heat, you turn on the compressor. You want to cool, you turn on the compressor and the reversing valve. And then the fan in all cases. So that was pretty simple. But back then I was living by myself at the time. Now I'm married. So I didn't have to worry so much about keeping things clean and keeping, the uptime wasn't such a concern. Yeah. So at the time I basically just took down my thermostat that the house came with, and I had the relays all just basically, screwed onto the wires, and that was hanging out of the hole where the thermostat used to be, just hanging by the thermostat wire.
Yeah. So basically it looked like your house was still under construction.
Yeah, exactly. And then the temperature sensor, I was using another ESP device with just whatever the temperature sensor was, hanging again off the wall in my bedroom.
Nice.
Basically the outlets where you would put a TV up on the wall, it was just hanging there by the wires. And it was all controlled through Home Assistant at the time. I used the generic thermostat component, and that worked really well. Not a great idea because I've learned quick, you don't want your air conditioner, depending on Home Assistant, being up and running.
Fair.
Especially when it's on your server that you might want to take down. Like if I'm upgrading my server, let's say, or sometimes I want to switch out some of the hard drives or something. There's a lot of reasons my server might be down, and you can't have your air conditioner not working for, an hour or two or even longer. So that was, again, living by myself. I made it work. I think there was a couple times when I had to go in and actually press the buttons on the relays to turn the air conditioner on for a little bit. But now the way I have it is they're both. I still have 2 separate devices. One that runs the thermostat and one that's the temperature sensor. But they're both ESPHome devices and they connect outside of Home Assistant. So now I only really need to keep Wi-Fi up, which is, I think, it's a lot easier to have near 100% uptime on your Wi-Fi network compared to a server. So I've never had any issues there. I'm really happy with that.
Interesting. So I'd love to pick your brain for a second, because my Ecobee is having just Wi-Fi issues, right? It's kind of crapping out once in a while, and it just doesn't pick up on wireless. It's the only device I have that arbitrarily drops on Wi-Fi, right? And going back and forth with support, I got to say their WhatsApp support, phenomenal. Just the responses I got was kind of annoying, but again, I get it. We all, like, I work in tech, whatever. Like we've all dealt with it, right? So it's not poor by any means. It's just, standard kind of stuff, right? So I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, do I get another one or do I DIY it, right? And and honestly, when it works, it's phenomenal. And this is 7 years in, it's having issues. So I'm not overly upset about it, but so I was looking at getting like an M5 stack, like the Core 2. It's basically ESP32 with a screen built in, a couple of capacitive buttons, et cetera, right? So what are your thoughts on doing something like that over getting a ready-made thing? Because again, I'd need to develop logic and so on and so forth. It's like $50, right? As opposed to whatever an Ecobee costs these days. I assume 150, 200, 300, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing you got to think about is what it's going to look out like on the wall, really. I mean, how are you going to mount that thing to look like a thermostat?
Yeah.
Actually, what I ended up doing, actually ran a second thermostat wire into my laundry room. That's kind of across from where the thermostat was originally. So now I've got all the relays are in the laundry room where they're kind of hidden. And then I made one of those like HA switch plates. I know someone's mentioned them on here before, but it's just like a Nexion screen where you kind of create these like templates of touch buttons on it. And then you kind of control what it displays through your home assistant automations and stuff. So I put that where the thermostat used to be. So it's kind of a nice little touch interface. It's embedded in the wall on like a nice wall plate with a motion sensor to turn the screen on and stuff. So if you can make that M5 or whatever look good on the wall, or you got somewhere else you can put it, then I think that's the main barrier. But otherwise, I think the logic, there is a certain, it is kind of difficult to figure out maybe what the control signals are and stuff. So if you know what that is, then I'd definitely go for it. I mean, I think it's great.
That's why I have no idea. I literally couldn't even begin to fathom.
Yeah, and the problem too is there is a lot of options. I mean, some people have furnaces, some people just have heat pumps like I do. Some people have backup heat. There's a lot to figure out for sure. I think I had a pretty simple case.
Okay. Yeah, because I have heat too to deal with, right? I guess in Arizona, that's not typically a usual issue you deal with.
Yeah, we do have heat. We do, but it's just the heat pump and it runs, a little bit at night. So it's not a big deal. If it goes out too, it's not a game, it's not a life and death situation like it would be in like, say, Alaska or something. Or
Right. Yeah, Toronto gets pretty bad sometimes.
But I do love the thermostat. Some of the stuff I've got going with it, I use a lot of history stats. So I keep a 24-hour running average to see how long it runs every single day.
Yep.
So that's kind of fun to watch, especially in the summer, even though it's a little depressing when you get over like 50% where the AC is running more often than it's not.
Yeah.
So it's fun to watch. And I also use the history stats for like the change in the filter. I've got a little NFC tag by the filter. So I scan that when I change the filter, and then I can kind of monitor not only how long it's been since I changed the filter, but I also use the history stats to tell me how long has the compressor been running or the fan since the filter was changed. So I can change it not just based on the calendar, but based on the runtime. So I think that's pretty slick.
Yeah.
Are you doing any energy monitoring, like to see how much that's costing you as well?
No, I really don't. Because I know how much it's costing.
You get the bill, right?
It's outrageous, and I know it's 90% AC. So that's about all I need.
Have you thought about doing or adjusting your automations to then reduce that bill in a way, like to be able to? Is it even like worth it? In your situation,
I don't know what I used to have when I left. When I went to the office for work, I had like the different billing rates throughout the day. So I had automations that would, change how the AC ran. So basically, I could come home in the evening and the house would be like pre-cooled. Yep. So I could basically go like 3 hours without it running. But now it's the same rate all day. I haven't really thought much about it.
Yeah, that's fair.
The other thing I do with thermostats, there's a few different ways. I do the ESPHome thermostats. I also do the generic thermostats through Home Assistant. They're really good. I like making them. I've got the intake fan in my bedroom, so if I've got a window sensor on the window there. If I open the window in my bedroom, the fan automatically turns on. Mm-hmm. And then it uses the same temperature sensor from the air conditioner. So basically it just keeps pumping in cool air until it gets to whatever the temperature I have it set to, and then it stops, which is nice because what it used to do is it would run all night, and let's say it got down to 40 degrees Fahrenheit outside, then my room would just be like way too cold.
Right.
So it's nice to have it stop, and then it kind of turns itself on and off to regulate that temperature throughout the night. So that's been really happy. Been really good.
Have you done anything crazy like putting an ESP in your TV cabinet or office somewhere? Done something fun just for no value, just because you can? Yeah.
I made this like LED meter in the garage just to show like how far away the car was when I parked.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
So it's got a vertical stack of 36 RGB LEDs, and it's got, the bottom green, yellow, red, like a stoplight. So as you get closer to it, it moves up.
Cool.
That's
slick, but I was really happy with that. And then my wife took my parking spot, so now she uses it. She says she likes it. I'm in the other garage spot, which what I kind of want to do is I want to create a second little ultrasonic sensor so I can measure both cars and still use like the single meter to like, depending on which car is parking, kind of detect that.
Yeah.
So
the
LEDs
changing range, then turn on.
Yep.
And do the LEDs like stay on when the car's parked, or does it know, all right, now that there's a car there, I'll turn the LEDs on and show the lights and turn off after 2 minutes or something?
So I've got it, because it's an ESPHome device, I've imported the garage open shut sensor. So it knows when the garage is open. So basically it's completely idle when the garage is shut. And then when the garage opens, it starts pulling for the ultrasonic sensor and updating the distance and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, ESPHome is so good for this kind of stuff where you want automation on device. Yeah. Originally with Tasmota, it was basically just a set, the ultrasonic sensor, and then separately was the LED output, and all the automation I was doing through Home Assistant. And then I used AppDaemon as well to program it in Python. And it was just super delayed to send everything back through MQTT and then calculate it. So now having the LEDs calculated based on the distance all on the ESP, it is like buttery smooth. I really like that.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Like it's similar to your air conditioner, right? Like not having to have Home Assistant or someone else calculate, everything like that. It's all done in the one place.
Yep, all on chip, so it's very fast. And then the other thing too with the ESPHome is I was able to, you basically disable automatically updating the sensor, the ultrasonic sensor, and then it only does it in response to like a poll. So I don't have the sensor running 24/7. Which I don't know if there's any reason you wouldn't want an ultrasonic sensor going 24/7, but for some reason it just makes me more comfortable not to have it going 24/7.
Yeah,
sure.
Another fun one. My wife's she's a doctor in training right now. She's a resident. Yeah. So a lot of times she's got to get up. She's got to be there by 4:30 in the morning, and she is not a morning person to say the least. So. I set her up like an alarm system through Home Assistant that she really likes. I've got one of my old phones that's just permanently stationed by her bedside as like an extra alarm, so I can send notifications there, and it's I know it's always going to make noise. And then when she sets her alarm on her phone, first thing it does, it dings that extra phone, just make sure that phone's on, and it's going to make noise for her. It senses the alarm volume on her phone, because one of the things she does is in the morning when she's like basically not awake, she turns down the volume on her alarm. So then like if she snoozes, like 10 minutes later the alarm's going to go off, but
you're not going to hear it.
The volume's down. So now through the Home Assistant companion app, which is like just so nice. Not only can you get the alarm time, but the volume, and you can set the alarm volume. So I've got all that automated.
Cool.
Is this on iPhone or Android?
Android.
Yeah, nice.
That's pretty sweet.
So then again, at the alarm, when the alarm goes off, it ensures that the volume's still up. So if she does turn it down again, then when the next alarm goes off, the volume's going to be back up. And then also when the alarm goes off, it turns on like a Boolean that starts a timer that then after 13 minutes, it's going to say, nope, no more snoozing. Both her and the extra phone are going to start sending notifications every 30 seconds, like with like some really obnoxious ringtones.
That's funny.
Basically make sure she gets up. And then the only way that it's clearable to make it stop ringing is I put an NFC tag in the bedroom. So she's got to get up, an NFC tag in the bathroom.
Yep. Physically scan it.
I mean, I can clear it for her through like the entities because I like know what to do, but she's got to get up and go to the bathroom to clear it. So she's been really happy with that, and it works well for her.
Really? Because that sounds terrible in a very positive way, right?
I was thinking the exact same thing. Like, she's really happy with it. Really?
Yeah. Well, if it wasn't for that, she would have definitely been late multiple times. So
yeah.
She doesn't like it when it's in use, but when she's on time for work, she really appreciates it.
Yeah.
I'd be interested, what was your reasoning behind using the NFC tag to disarm the alarm? Could you just have like a button in there, or even just as once the motion is detected in the bathroom, cancel it?
Yeah, it could have been a button. The issue with motion, I think, would have been that if I got up to go to the bathroom or something, it would have cleared. Yeah. I think the main reason I use NFC tags was just an excuse to use them. I had a pack of NFC tags I'd ordered, and I just wanted to have a good use for them.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're cheap too. So
yep, and they're fun. I mean, people really should be using them.
That was going to be my next question. What else you got the alarm based on NFC? Anything else you're using NFC tags for?
Like I said, I've got one by the air conditioning filter for that. Mm-hmm. So I can just scan that and mark when I change the filter. And then
nice.
The only other thing is I've got a couple nieces, and I set up Home Assistant at their house, my sister and brother-in-law. Nice. So I made them little NFC, like one of those scanners with the ESPHome.
Yep.
That came out a while back. So now they can, they've got some RGB lamps, and they can use the tags to change color and do effects and stuff. But other than that, that's kind of it.
Are you doing anything with the other Home Assistant instance? Like, are you connecting yours with theirs, or having to remote manage in or anything like that?
No, I don't do anything with it if I can help it.
Yep, don't want to be tech support.
Just every time I'm back home, then I help them with any stuff they need set up. I wired up their garage, so they've got 3 garage doors, and so we ran some Ethernet through their attic, Ethernet cable for all the open shut sensors and et cetera, all hooked up to one ESP32.
Nice.
That's perfect.
But otherwise, no, I don't. I try not to monitor it, or I don't want to get too sucked in.
Fair enough.
Yeah, you don't want to be support.
Yeah, well, I definitely still am, but.
So are you primarily using, from an automation perspective, do you just let the automations run themselves, do that kind of stuff, and then what's your methodology, or is it primarily there's some stuff where you go in and press buttons or do stuff?
I mean, as much as I can, I like to have it automated, either based on time of day or motion and stuff.
Right.
But other than that, I do have a lot of manual stuff. I've got my night mode. So I told you I put that little touch screen next to my bedroom.
Yeah.
With the thermostat controls, I've also got a button on there for inner night mode. So as I walk into my bedroom at night, I just push it.
Nice.
Turns off all the lights throughout the house. Turns on the fan in the bedroom. Sometimes I have it adjust the thermostat. Right now, I don't do that. I'm pretty comfortable with one temperature all day and night.
Sure.
So I do have a lot of manual stuff, but then, once I am in night mode, I've got a motion sensor on that little touchpad. So if I walk out of the bedroom, the Home Assistant knows. And so it turns on a few lights for me throughout the house so I can get around. If I open one of the back doors, it turns on the back porch lights. during night mode. So when I let the dogs out, basically they've got a little bit of light to figure out what they're doing. But then the other thing that happens when I press the button for night mode on the thermostat controls, the little Nexion touchpad, it goes to another screen where I basically set like a what time do I expect to wake up variable.
Yep.
Right.
So I think by default it's like 6:30 in the morning because I usually get up about 6:45 or 7.
Cool.
So at that time, that's when it knows to turn on the hot water kettle so I can make my morning coffee. Once it detects motion after that time, then it knows night mode's done, Brian's up, no more night mode automations. So that's all automatic based on time of day and motion outside my bedroom.
Okay. That's pretty decent.
Are you doing anything like in terms of voice control around the house?
No, and I've always been very like anti any kind of voice control, really. I mean, even to the point of if I call on like some of those automated systems, I hate talking to them. I just like slam buttons until I get to a person.
Yep.
And I'm also like not really interested in having like the Google or Amazon like listening in my home 24/7.
Yeah.
Transferring stuff up to the cloud. But I will say recently, my father-in-law, he's got, Alexa, careful guys, don't say it. He's got the Amazon devices and he uses voice control around the house and it's really warming up. I'm warming up on it. So I am like really excited about the Year of the Voice stuff. I'm keeping a close eye on that.
Yeah.
So you guys had Mike Hansen on. I was really excited to hear what's going on with that.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to be doing one of their ESPHome devices as soon as I can figure out what's going on with it and get it working.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Just even using like a little M5, what's it called, Atom or whatever.
Can't wait for custom wake words. Just give me those. Custom wake
I
words.
know, right? Just hey, Home Assistant.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I'm really excited about that. Some of the other stuff I do is I like all the media integrations. I've got my entire media center is in Home Assistant, my TV, my receiver, and then I use the NVIDIA Shield for streaming and Plex and stuff.
Nice.
So it's really nice to be able to, turn off everything automatically when I stop watching something. If I start casting music through Plex, then it'll automatically turn on the receiver to the right input and then go to like the right volume. The other thing that's really cool is I put speakers on my back porch. So if I'm casting music through Plex, then open the back door, it's going to automatically start playing on those speakers.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
Yeah, that's super slick. And then if I just press the switch for the back door backyard lights, then it knows if it's playing music out there, and instead of toggling the light, it's just going to turn off the music out back.
That's cool because I'm guessing it's like, is it a Sonos or an NSP device? So you can control what the actual action happens, right? Like it's not going to just directly control the relay attached to the lights. It's going to then.
Yep. It's a D1. Right? It's a D1 Mini there, so it's a button input, and then all automation is on the D1 Mini. So it looks at you can, and then again with the ESPHome, you can pull in any state from anything from Home Assistant, so it knows. What input the receiver's on. It knows if the zone 2's on.
Yeah, cool.
For the outside speakers and stuff. So it can do all the logic to figure out, should I turn off the speakers or should I toggle the light?
Yeah.
It's pretty
nice.
slick. I like it.
That is nice. That's actually really handy. And then do you have like once it's certain time of night, turn it down or something like that? Like, I don't know if you guys have like noise rules in your community, but
no, I'm luckily not in an HOA, but the main thing is just it will stay on and play forever if I forget. So I do have it. Like if I turn off the receiver, what I don't really think about is zone 2 stays on playing music outside. So I'll like turn off everything to like, get ready for bed or it's dinner time or whatever. And music's still playing outside. If I turn off the receiver inside or if I stop streaming, like pause my music, then it'll stop it after a couple minutes, turn off the receiver outside. So I'm not just blasting music all night.
Yep.
And then entering night mode too, I'll turn it off. So I've got a few checks in there for that. Yep.
How do you handle like the situation where you might be outside, it's dark, and you want to turn the lights off and on, but not control the music?
I don't know. I mean, if
I've thought
I'm,
about edge case yet.
yeah, I mean, if it's playing music at night, it'll turn on when I go outside. So I would have to. I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely do it based on time of day. If the sun's down, don't do it. But absolutely. I don't know. I mean, typically if I've got music blasting in the kitchen and I'm going outside, I probably want music to play outside. I'm like grilling or hanging out with some friends outside, drinking a beer or something. So
absolutely,
I'm not too worried about that.
Fair enough.
I'm guessing, and if you've opened the door to go outside, music's playing, the light's going to be on anyway. You're just trying to think if you'd be in a situation where you want to, hey, I want that light on. I guess you just go into Home Assistant and turn the light off.
Yeah, and like I said, the button's right next to the door, so if it starts playing, I'm like, oh, didn't want that. I just slap it on my way out.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, makes sense. And what about presence detection? Like, are you doing anything to say, hey, I'm home? I know you've got the cars in the house to say...
yeah, I mean, it's really just the companion app. I don't have any triggers based on it, so I don't need like a lot of really quick timing. Mostly I just check to see, like in the morning, there's some stuff when I wake up that runs a little differently if my wife's home versus if I'm home alone, that kind of thing. I don't know. I kind of want to do some of those Bayesian sensors and detect based on like Wi-Fi network and something that's going to, or something else that's going to trigger a little quicker when I get home. Because there's a few things I might like to do, but I just never got around to it.
I've always found the companion app to be pretty fast.
Yeah, for me, I think it's pretty quick, but for whatever reason, for my wife, it can take a few minutes.
Okay, interesting.
Next, for me, it's just like bam, home. All right, that's it.
Yeah, I need to maybe set up some automations that notify me when it detects me home, so I can kind of get a feel for how fast it is. Maybe it's better now than it used to be.
Yeah.
The other thing I like a lot is in my office with work from home, I've used it's called like Has.agent on my computer to notify the status of my computer and the mic and the camera. So I can, really the big thing is if the mic starts going, then it'll turn down the fan. If it's higher than low, it'll turn it down to low.
Yeah.
And I really like all the Home Assistant has really gone to town on their YAML automations. So you can do a lot of really cool stuff now. So it uses a variable to store like what is the current fan setting. And then I use a trigger or wait for trigger to wait for the camera or the microphone to go back off. And then it turns the fan back up to where it was at, when it turned it down. So, that makes me really happy every time it goes off.
Yeah. What OS is this for?
It's Windows 10 I'm running here. Nice. So as far as I know, there's no like official app or anything for Windows.
Yep.
So it's just Has.agent, kind of runs in the background, and you can set up a million sensors, I'm sure. Right now, I just have it given the status of the microphone and the camera. And
then they just come in as like states into Home Assistant, like entities, I'm guessing.
Binary sensors, It's either on or off, or if the computer's off, it'll be unavailable.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Then I got some stuff that runs like when the computer turns on in the morning, then it turns like the lights and stuff on and the fan the way I want it.
Yep.
I've got a couple toggles on the UI and the card for my office where I can say, do I want the fan on automatically in the morning or not? Because depending on the time of year, rather than automated based on like the month, I just have it manually turn that on and off.
Yep.
Sure.
Same with the backlighting on the monitor. I love the backlighting. I just use like WLED, but it generates so much heat that in the summer it's like a killer. I just can't turn it on. So,
do you find it to the point where it's actually like a problem? Not obviously not like a problem. You're not worried about like catching on fire or something, but like it's warm enough that it's like, okay, this is bothering me now. Like.
Yeah, it really does. Really, the issue is the air conditioning in my house. It just doesn't come into the office that great. I really need to just get in the attic and take a look. I think it's got to be some ducting issue or something.
Sure.
But for the time being, I can't have anything generating heat in my office. it's gotten to the point, actually, I've got my PC in the living room on the other side of the wall, and I just like cut a hole through the drywall and run all the cords through, so I don't have even my computer generating heat. So it's really just the monitors and the backlighting if I have the backlighting on.
Wow. And that's crazy.
Yeah. But it's fun too, because I've got water cooling and a bunch of RGB and stuff. So it's kind of a good little discussion piece. Anytime someone comes over, they're like, oh, holy crap, what's this?
Yeah.
So then I get a chance to kind of tell them about my water cooling setup.
That's cool. That's funny. Now, like changing topics a little bit, you mentioned you had pets. Do you do? And I'm not sure if you have any kids or anything either, but do you do anything, any kind of automations around that?
Just the 2 dogs, no kids. No, I don't. I can't think of anything really with the dogs. Actually, what I do have around pets is we've got a bunch of feral cats that are like it got to be like a big problem. So
yeah.
I started trying to trap them all and get them fixed. So I use home automation with that. So originally what I did, there's a trap where the cat goes in, starts eating, and then they step on this pad and the door slams behind them.
Yep.
So I put a little door sensor on there so I could know like, oh, we got one. It was just one of the tilt sensor that I could detect whether it was vertical or horizontal. That worked for a while, but then when I hit kind of a critical mass, it was just every time the door went off, it was like the same cats, because I had like already fixed more cats than not.
Yeah.
So I had to set it up then with main where I kind of had the door propped open with a water bottle, and I just put a motion sensor on there, so I could, if motion went off, and I could go check, oh, is it a new one or not? And then I had the string kind of going through the window to my house, and I could pull the trap without him detecting me.
I love that sometimes it's the most basic, right? Like where you got a spring running to the house and just yank on a string.
Yeah, an empty plastic water bottle and a string tied around it. Yep, hey, exactly. And
there's nothing wrong with that. I love it.
And then now I've got cameras on there, so I can I'll turn the cameras on for a few days a month just to kind of monitor the population. And what I use for the cameras is Zone Minder, and so it's really nice how that integrates in Home Assistant.
Right.
So I can I've got a motion capture. So anytime it detects motion on the camera, then it'll start recording. But what ends up happening is I go back to check, and it's like, 1,000 videos of me walking to the grill, my pets walking, my dogs walking back and forth after I let them out. So I've got it set up with the door sensors where when I open the door, then it turns off recording for 5 minutes, and then once the door's shut for 5 minutes,
right?
So that's really cut down on the amount of time it takes me to review all those videos to see if there's any new cats that need fixed. But nothing with the dogs. I mean, no.
So you've done a whole bunch of ESPHome stuff. You mentioned in your email that you've got so much, like you've gone down the rabbit hole so far that you've actually opened up a store and starting selling some of these devices. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so a year or two ago, I'm sure it's a common story where I was using Tuya Convert. I'd always be buying these Tuya bulbs and plugs and stuff and converting them over to Tasmota that way. And eventually they kept plugging the holes, and then Tuya Convert would, go around it. And I think they pretty much gave up eventually. And then they just took out the ESPs and they started using the other chips. And I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. Surely I can just order these online from China and just have the factory put them together. So I looked on Alibaba and found someone that could do it for me. And
nice.
You had to order them by the thousands. So I was like, okay, well, I guess
I'm in for a penny and for a pound.
I guess I'll order 1,000 bulbs and 1,000 plugs. And that was definitely one of the more scarier experiences. Sending a check for wiring 16 grand or 18 grand or whatever it is the first time I put an order, and kind of just keeping my fingers crossed hoping I was going to get 1,000 plugs and 1,000 bulbs. Yeah. So that was definitely a crazy experience, but now they're selling on Amazon, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. originally, the whole idea was I just wanted to like something I could put test mode on, and it was just going to be like a not really much fanfare, just like some test mode, a real basic thing. But then one of the things I was doing when I was kind of trying to just make sure that the firmware was going to work, that the factory was going to put on there, was wanted to make sure that from the Tasmota firmware that someone could be able to flash over to ESPHome if they wanted to. So part of the process was I was kind of testing that out. And then through that was how the first time I used ESPHome, I was like, because before Tasmota is so simple, there's one bin file, you put it on and you can do whatever you want. ESPHome, I was like, YAML, I don't know about this. But setting it up for the first time just to test and make sure it would work, I was like so blown away. I think, within 2 or 3 days of that, I had all my Tasmota devices switched over to ESPHome, and
that's great.
Never looked back. But ESPHome I like because you can really create a custom device that really does exactly what you want it to. You can have all the automations online on the device. You can have all kinds of entities that show up automatically in ESPHome. I think a lot easier than Tasmota. Tasmota does have rules and stuff, but with ESPHome, it's just so simple to program whatever you want in either the YAML automations or I do a lot now in C++ through Lambdas. So I love it. And then the ESPHome API is just so good compared to MQTT. It's blazing fast. You don't need a separate server for MQTT for the API like you do with MQTT. So I think like people that buy an ESPHome device, you can just put in your Wi-Fi credentials and that's it.
That's
the Home Assistant detects it.
Yeah.
Whereas Tasmota, I think you've got to figure out the IP address, and then you've got to log in and put in the MQTT credentials. So I like ESPHome for that reason as well.
So the devices you're selling, they're fully flashed with ESPHome, ready to go.
Yeah, yep. They've got ESPHome on it, and then it uses the dashboard import. So if you've got the ESPHome dashboard running, it automatically detects that, and then you can recompile with the latest version and pull in any of the Home Assist or the updates that we put out. Like sometimes we'll have like new entities or a little better, fix some bugs or something with automations.
Yep. And so what devices are on the store?
Yeah, so right now I think it's just we've got about 4 different sizes of bulbs and smart plugs, and then we've got a wall switch as well. Just kind of the basic stuff. Yeah. Mostly what I wanted for my house is kind of what I started out with.
Just times 1,000.
Yeah, exactly. So some of the stuff I want to do next would be I'm trying to get a dimmer going. What I want to do is all the Tuya stuff. They've got like that Tuya MCU between the ESP and the dimming circuitry. So I'm trying to figure out if I want to have that directly controlled by the ESP32 and not have to have that extra MCU. And so far I've not been able to get it to work super smoothly. So I just needed time to sit down, and I've got an oscilloscope here. I want to, get it up on the test bench and just figure out what's going wrong with the timing and stuff.
Yeah.
It's cool. Just, I've got a day job and I don't have a lot of free time to do that kind of stuff. So. Oh yeah. This is like definitely my cup of tea for sure. I mean, I love it.
That's really cool. And I like that you're just like, yeah, okay, cool. I'll just buy 1,000 of these and sell it. Like, let's do it.
Yeah. And it's been, definitely a blessing and a curse. I've got some horror stories about the first order. I mean, it did come properly, and I got 1,000 plugs and 1,000 bulbs. But what I ended up having to do, which is like totally ludicrous, is I ended up having to manually reflash all 1,000 of both of them.
Oh no.
Yeah. Otherwise I wouldn't have been able to like sell them in good conscience. So
yeah,
with the plugs, a lot of people don't realize this, but the default Wi-Fi power on ESPHome, it's set up to like 20, which the max is 21 for I think the Arduino drivers or whatever. Whereas Tasmota defaults to 17, and there's actually a big warning on Tasmota that says, do not put this higher than 17. Like, you're going to have problems. But nevertheless, ESPHome's defaults to 20. And when I got all these, the plugs from China, the sample I had worked perfectly. But with the ones I got, it would not connect to the portal, the access point to set the Wi-Fi credentials without crashing. So 80% of them, it would crash anytime you tried to enter your Wi-Fi credentials. So the only thing and it was a nightmare too, because I had to debug that. I had no idea why it was crashing. It took me probably 3 months before I even figured out that it was the Wi-Fi power that was going wrong with it. And so I had 1,000 units that I paid for that I couldn't even sell because I couldn't figure out what the heck was wrong with them. So I ended up, luckily they've got default credentials. So if I set up a spare Wi-Fi router I had with the default credentials, they all connected to that, and then I could flash them through the web interface that way. And luckily it could do that without crashing. It just couldn't connect. I couldn't set the Wi-Fi credentials through the access point.
I mean, I buy stuff from AliExpress sometimes, and I know the return shipping price for AliExpress is more than what sometimes you pay for a device. So I'm guessing you didn't want to have to return 1,000 of them with the return postage, right?
I don't think that would have even been an option. I think I would have had to eat the cost. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
absolutely.
mean, the boxes these come in, it's the bowl it's like, I think 45 centimeter cubed.
Yeah.
So big boxes. And I mean, some of the bigger shipments I get, UPS is pulling up with 30 boxes.
Wow.
So, and you know, my wife is super happy, but I've been storing them in the guest bedroom. So I think, you know, at the most they'll stack like 2 floor to ceiling, like taking up like half that room.
Yeah.
I'd like to get like a storage unit or something where I could keep these, but it's just, first of all, inconvenient. And then the price of it, I'm not like making a ton of money off these. So as long as I can keep them at home, I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah. That was like, I was going to ask you too, if you don't mind, Jake, like what's the interest in these pre-flash devices? Like, sort of seems to me it would be pretty like niche, like only a certain amount of people be interested in an ESPHome device. Or are you finding that
it's slow. I mean, I sell like the plugs and the kind of main bulb sizes I sell like a lot.
Yep.
They kind of sell through. But like some of the lesser bulb sizes, like, you know, I might sell one every week or something. And to the point of like, yeah, I keep stuff in stock because I like to, and I want to make sure that even me personally, I have access to them. So I just keep them in stock. But some of those I'm paying more in Amazon storage fees than, you know, I'm making on them. But the plugs sell really well, and like the main bulb sizes sell really well. So it's going well overall.
Yeah, that's great. And kudos to you for like just going in right and doing it. Because I know, like, unfortunately, I'm in Australia, so I'm probably not going to be a customer because we have ridiculous electrical laws down here, so I can't just plug anything in. But I'm sure there is a whole bunch of people that, like me, would just go, "Yep, I can't be bothered flashing. I don't want to have to pull apart hardware, soldering, crap. Right, just give me something that's
I mean, yep. Especially now that 2U convert's no longer a thing, and pretty much your only option now is soldering if you want to buy something in the store. So so at the time, I was just like, okay, someone's got to do something. So I got on Alibaba and found them. And I mean, now there's a couple other options. I think like at home or whatever. Like I don't think they were around at the time. And Cloud Free, they're another one that sells some of the Tasmota stuff. So I'm not alone in it. It's enough to support at least a few different manufacturers, but at the time, you know, I don't think those guys are around. So I was just like, okay, someone's got to do it. I didn't tell you guys about my kettle. You guys have talked about it a little bit, but so originally, I know some other people have talked about putting relays in there to kind of just trigger the buttons to turn it on and stuff. But so that's what I originally had, was I just put in 2 relays to turn it on. And then the other thing that I originally did was I put a couple load cells as feet so I could detect the weight of the whole thing. So that's how I'm kind of detecting whether there's water in it. And then I don't turn it on automatically in the morning if there's no water detected. So that's important to me because there's no way this kettle has any kind of safety mechanism with this cheap kettle I got. So I'm sure it would burn up the first time I failed to have water in the thing. But then since then, I've spruced it up a little bit. I actually totally replaced the power supply that it came with. It's like the board in there with a little 5-volt converter because that power supply was just the junk. And then I now sense the state of it through the LEDs. So I wired the LEDs back to the D1 Mini so it knows if it's on or not and whether it's holding temperature. And then instead of relays now, I just use a couple transistors to turn the power on and off. Press the button instead of the relays.
Yeah.
And then what I want to do is I've got one of those little ESP32s with the OLED screen built in. I want to actually just completely replace the entire control mechanism, like the MCU that's on that board with the ESP32. So basically wire up the temperature sensor from the kettle up to the analog input.
You're basically building a whole new kettle.
Exactly, yep. And then I want to use basically the ESPHome thermostat component to regulate the temperature of that. That's kind of my next to do. I've got the parts. I just kind of have to find time, and it's going to be a hassle too because I'm going to keep the buttons working. I'm going to have to keep the same control board in there, but I'm going to have to basically cut out the center of it to have somewhere to stick the OLED screen.
Yeah.
So we'll see if I ever do it, but that's definitely on my to-do list. Yeah, I can tell already, I can tell probably the way that's going to go is for the first month or two, I'm going to have the ESP32 with the OLED screen kind of wired out to the side of it, testing stuff and making sure it works. And
is it all part of is it part of the kettle base so can you still pour a coffee without wires dragging around?
Yeah, exactly. Everything is embedded in the base of the kettle. It got quite a bit of volume in there, so it fits the relay okay. The relay barely fits, and the D1 Mini, and I've got a little 5-volt converter, like I said, in there, and yeah, it's got plenty of room for it.
Yeah, nice.
The sensors, I just the load cells for the weight. I just cut holes in the bottom of it and kind of glued them over the holes as feet.
Yep. That's fantastic. Brian, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. We're going to leave links to, you've got a website, I'm guessing, where you're selling all your stuff.
Yeah, I've got a website, YouTube channel, all that.
Yep.
GitHub. So yeah,
we'll link it all
GitHub's the one I update the most.
Yeah, fantastic. We'll link it all in the show notes on the website. So yeah, Brian, thank you so much. Best of luck with your orders from Alibaba. Hope they keep coming through.
Yeah, we've got it down to a science now, so it's all good.
Good.
Yeah, appreciate your guys' time. It's definitely been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Yep. Bye.